Hey guys, my name's Eternize, and today we're gonna rank more than 70 audio plugins from very good to trash. Now, I've been producing electronic music for more than 10 years, and I've used every single one of these plugins to a great extent, so this is my opinion. If you have a different opinion of any of these plugins, please let me know in the comments below. So jumping into the first one of the list is Voxenko Span, and this is your standard spectrum analyzer. It's free and it's really good, it's really simple, so basically just an S tier. The next one, Imager 2 from Isotope, also really good at analyzing, also free, so S tier. The next one is from Brainworks called BX Meter, very handy to have when you mix, so you always have a visual representation of your RMS levels. I will give this one a B or C, it's gonna get a B. It's really handy to have when you mix. Next one, the oscilloscope, we all know. The reason I hate this one is it doesn't sync to your DAW, so it always starts at a different point, and that's really annoying when you deal with kicks or anything where you want to analyze the audio. That's the reason I put it in trash category, because really it can't be that hard to sync. Basically trash plugin, but really handy if you can make it work. The next one is Standard Clip, and this is just a really clean clipper. It's pretty cheap. It's a very good plugin. If you want to clip whatever, just clip the peaks, clip anything. You can use it for clipping the kicks in Hardstyle as well. Very good plugin. It's gonna get on the A list. Next one is the T-Rex clipper, and it kind of goes for the same. It's very flexible as you can change the slope of the clip, so you can make it soft clip and you can make it hard clip or anything in between. It's very handy. It's very high quality. Also on the A list. Now we get to the compressors. This is the CLA 3A. The thing I hate about this plugin is that you can't customize it like fully. You can't tweak it. You can only choose between so many different settings. I don't even think you can change the attack and release. I think it's set on this plugin, which is why it's going to get this C tier. It sounds pretty good. You can use it on leads, which gives it a pretty snappy sound. So it's a pretty good plugin, but it lacks customizability. The next compressor is the Oxford compressor, and this one, it takes pretty much every box. I mean, you can't ask any more from a compressor. I guess this one is on the A tier. Next up is the Dynamics module from Isotope. Your multiband compressor, it's very clean. It's pretty much what you can ask of a multiband compressor. I just feel like it's mostly for mastering. It's not quite as handy on individual sounds. So you can use this on buses or on your master. It will serve you just fine. It gets a B tier. Next up is the OTT, the infamous OTT. I guess it's supposed to be an S tier, but I mean, the sound is so overused these days. It is free. I guess it's gonna go on the A tier. Next up is the CLA 2A, and it kind of suffers from the same issue as the other CLA. It kind of lacks the ability to tweak the attack and release. It sounds very good, but it only gets a C tier. Next up is the multiband compressor from FabFilter. I use it in almost every project, either on the master or some of the buses. Yeah, it gets a B tier. Now we have an old plugin from Waves, but it's still very much used these days. It's Renaissance Vox. I guess it's the vocal compressor. I don't know why you would use this instead of any other plugin where you can actually tweak settings. Like this has, 2 settings? And it's a fixed everything. You just pull down the threshold. I mean, gets in the trash tier. Next one is the FabFilter Pro C2. Also a very good compressor, very clean. I guess this is my go-to compressor on anything, because you can really choose between so many different modes, and you can tweak anything from the attack to release and everything in between. You can also use it for sidechaining. Basically the perfect compressor in my opinion. Gets the S tier. Next up is the SSL channel strip from Waves. I think this one lacks the ability also to tweak the individual things like release on the compressor specifically. You also have the EQ section, of course, and the gain control. But overall, I would say this one is a C tier. Next up, we have the CLA 76. This one has a bit more customizability in terms of attack and release, but still this is a very specific sound to the compressor. It's not very clean. It has this color to it. Basically, it gets a C tier for me. The next one is the C6 from Waves. And this one is just very mushy is the best word I can describe this as. Yeah, so it gets a trash for me. Next up is the Waves Master Bus Compressor. Yeah, this one is not for me. I used it back in the days on the master and buses. Nowadays, it just seems old and outdated. I have other compressors that I want to go to first. Next up is the delay section here, and this one is the H delay, also from Waves. This one is, I've used this for the longest time. I tend to reach for other delays today, but this one is so quick and so efficient. It's a very good plugin in my opinion. It gets a B tier. Next one is the Echo Boy from Sound Toys. Also very, very good plugin in my opinion. You can tweak a lot of things. It's also a B tier for me. The next one is Replica. In the same category, it's very easy to tweak, very easy to get some good settings, great sound, basically a B tier. Next up is Camel Crusher, and I guess we all have been using this for compression or for distortion. For distortion, this is actually pretty bad. You can use it for saturation, but mostly I've been using this for compression, and it's so aggressive. I guess it's a decent plugin. It is gonna get a C tier. Next one is the Camel Fat, which is not really available anymore, but you can still find it. We used it so much back in the days for Hardstyle because it has a very specific sound. It's okay, I guess it's okay, but you can get cleaner distortion today by just fiddling around with frequencies and an EQ. So I guess this one is gonna go to the trash tier. Next up is Distortion. Pretty good plugin, but still kind of limited, I guess. It's a C tier for me. Now the next one is Trash 2 by Isotope. Very good plugin, very clean distortions, and you can get all kinds of different distortions with this one. You can also get it for pretty cheap when they run discounts on it. I'd say it's an A tier. Next up is Glitch 2. This one is pretty interesting. I've been using this specifically for Hardstyle for a long time. I typically also use it for the tape stop if you need that kind of effect. Very good plugin. I'm gonna get it a B tier. Next up is Effectrix, which is an attempt of doing basically the same thing, but I would say they are doing it pretty badly compared to the Glitch. So I would choose the Glitch anytime over the Effectrix. So this one is gonna get the trash tier. The next plugin is very Hardstyle specific, but a true time saver and a very good plugin for tweaking your Hardstyle kicks and just, try out kicks. I would definitely put this on the A tier, at least for Hardstyle. I don't know if you can use this for any other genre, but very good for Hardstyle. Next up is this Sound Shifter from Waves. I have kind of a love-hate relationship with this one because at one point it is very efficient and it sounds pretty good on certain sounds, but then again it has, for the most part, so bad sync errors. It's getting glitchy, it's getting out of sync. If there were no glitches, this would definitely be an S tier, but as it is, it's a trash, honestly. Next up is the Phaser. This one is an emulation of the VST phase effect, and it's a very close one at that. So basically a very good phase plugin if that's what you're after. I guess this one is a B tier. Next up, the RC20, and also a very good plugin for those ambient effects. Definitely very usable in different genres of EDM. It's gonna get a C tier. Next up is the Little Altar Boy, basically a pitch shift for vocals, but you can use it on anything to create different effects. Very good plugin, solid for the price also. It's a C tier. And here we have another S tier, definitely the EQ3 from FabFilter. Very clean EQ, you can't get anything better. And now they've added dynamic EQ to this as well, and it has all these other functions. Nothing to complain about here. Next up is the One Knob series from Waves, and I use this all the time. This is trash. Don't use these plugins. Next up is the Pultec from Waves, and this also has kind of a colored sound to it, but it's in a very pleasant way. I will give this one a B tier. Next up is Gulfos, and this one is very interesting. After I picked this up, my mixes instantly got better. You have to use it sparingly, but it is a very good auto EQ basically. It's getting in the S tier. Next up is the Soothe 2. Very good specifically at vocals. Anything like a hi-hat where you have these very harsh sounds, it can kind of tame it. It's a very good plugin. Kind of expensive though, but guess it's gonna get a B tier from me. Next up is the entire Melda the production suite. Some of these you can get for free. Very good, very high quality plugins. I would definitely recommend these. Yeah, it's basically a C tier for me. Next up is the Mac EQ. I don't know why you would use this instead of, say, Pro EQ3. Basically, this was appraised only for the air filter on vocals. I don't see why you would use this. Again, it's a trash tier for me. Next plugin is the Nova, and this is a free plugin. Very good for what it is. I use it for multiband compression or multiband EQ, I guess. Pretty solid plugin as it's free, so a C tier for me. Next up is the Dynamic EQ from iZotope. It's okay for mastering purposes or even on buses, so I guess it's gonna get on the C tier. Next up is BX Control. I use it so often on my mixes. It's gonna get the A tier. Same goes for the S1 from Waves. It's been around for so long, it's so efficient, very good plugin, A tier. Next up is the Imager from iZotope. This is such a good plugin, very versatile, very good in mastering situations. I'd say this is definitely an S tier. Next up is the Pan Shaper from the Shaperbox bundle. I use this one all the time on my panning effects, definitely B tier. Next plugin is the L2 Ultra Maximizer, and I can't think of any situation where you would use this instead of any other limiter. I guess you could use it on certain things, but this one is meant for mastering, and I have so many other limiters that I would use before this, and that's the reason it gets the trash tier. Next one is the Invisible limiter, and this is a perfect limiter in my opinion. You can basically just turn this all the way up and it will never distort. You can get very loud with this. It is gonna cut pretty hard on the dynamics, but it is a very good limiter in my opinion, especially for electronic music where you just need it loud. Very good, S tier. Next up is the L1, and I used this a ton, not for a mastering situation, but on individual channels or buses. And I think this one is still very viable today. Basically very good at controlling peaks in a very soft manner. And it's gonna get a C tier for me. Then we have the second limiter, the second invisible limiter, and compared to the previous version, just the standard invisible limiter, this one has more knobs, more options, but it really doesn't perform as well. That's the reason it gets in the trash tier. Then we have the one and only L2 from FabFilter. I think this is one of the most widely used limiters. I have a couple of limiters or a couple of plugins I would place before this in a mastering or limiting situation. I guess this one is only gonna get an A tier for me. Next up is the limiter from Oxford, and this is also a very transparent limiter. I don't use it that often anymore. I used it back in the days because it is so transparent, but you can get the same loudness as with the invisible limiter. That is why it is getting a C tier. And here we have another example of a absolute trash limiter. It's a multiband limiter. I guess it's going to be viable for some situations where you maybe want to limit vocals, but I can't really think of any situation where I want to put this on my master chain. So yeah, basically a trash tier for me. Next up is iZotope Maximizer. We all know it. Very clean, sometimes actually too clean, even though it's very good. You can't ask for anything else. It's top tier. Then we're gonna get into the reverbs, and this one is the Valhalla Vintage Verb. This is loved by so many. I have a couple of reverbs that I want to use before this, but nonetheless, it's a very good verb. It's gonna get a B tier. Then we have Arts Acoustic Reverb, also very good in my opinion. You can customize this so much. I think this one is gonna get an A tier. It's gonna be above Vintage Verb as it is so tweakable as it is. Now this one is an example of what I would say is somewhat close to the perfect reverb. You can tweak this in so many ways. I would say this one is a top tier reverb. Then we have the Valhalla Room, kind of the same tier, all the same issues as the Vintage Verb. It kind of lacks some options, but even though it has a very, very good sound, so B tier. Valhalla Shimmer, well, same thing with this one. It's a C tier. Now into saturation, we have the Decapitator. Very good plugin, loved by so many. I would give this one a B tier. The Saturn, also very good. I love the fact that you can choose the saturation in bands. B tier. We have the Sausage Fattener, just don't use it. Then we have the CLA Suite. There's like 5 different versions of this called bass, vocals, guitar, and a couple more. I don't see why I would use this. I just find these to be so low quality. Trash tier for me. Then we have the one knob saturation. I love this plugin. I use it so often. It's also free. I don't know what more you can ask for. Very clean saturation, and you can get very dirty with it as well. I would say this is definitely an A tier. Also under the saturation, because yes, the inflator is a saturation plugin, I would say this is either an A tier or an S tier. I guess it's an A tier. Yeah, A tier for this one. Now we have one that I never quite understood, the exciter from Isotope. I've seen so many use this on leads for hardstyle. I don't find it any useful at all. Just very metallic sounding. It's not for me. It's gonna get a trash tier. Sound goodizer, I don't even want to. Then we have the Transient Master. I would use the stock one in Logic before this one. It is useful for some situations, but then again, if your stock plugin can outperform it, I guess it's trash. Next up is the Transient Designer, and I'm more satisfied with the transient that this one creates. You can also tweak this a bit more. I would say this one enters the C tier. Then we're getting to the last section, which is compression or sidechaining. Nicky Romero, is this Kickstart? I don't know, again, why people would use this. There's so many customizable options out there. Having this strict form that you have to use and only be able to tweak the mix, I don't know why I would use this. It's a trash for me. LFO tool, essential tool, very good. I would say A tier. Then we have the volume shaper. This is for sure an S tier for me. The price that you pay for this and the options that you have, it's unbeatable, and I really just love the interface. I wish it was easier to set up the trigger in Logic for sidechaining. Still, it gets an S tier for me. And the last one is Track Spacer, and this one is also quite unique. It has its place, but for the most part I just want to use a regular compressor to sidechain. But really, it is a very good plugin, very high quality. I'd say it's a B tier. Now, just to clarify, none of these plugins are bad per se. It's just that when we get to the trash and the C tier, maybe there's some plugins out there that are actually better. Definitely, if you haven't tried out any of the A tier and S tier, I would definitely do so. I can vouch for any of these plugins. Let me know what you guys think of this list and if you agree or disagree with any of these choices. Also, let me know if I missed any plugins. Thank you for sticking to the end. Take care and talk to you soon.